Rain lashed against my coat as I stood outside a dilapidated warehouse in New York's seedy underbelly, its broken windows like eyes of a forgotten city. My heart thundered. Through the grime-streaked glass, I saw Sarah Jenkins, my lost love, cradling three gaunt children, their faces pale, eyes wide with terror. "I'll never leave you again," I whispered, voice cracking. But Sarah shrank back, her gaze a blade of distrust honed by years of pain. 6 years ago, she vanished from my life without a trace, and I'd torn the world apart searching for her. Now, finding her here, in this forsaken place, with our children, my children, felt like fate's cruel jest. Their tattered clothes, her trembling hands, the fear in their eyes, it gutted me. How had we fallen so far? What force ripped us apart? I'd built an empire, yet stood powerless before this moment. The warehouse groaned under the storm's weight, mirroring the dread and hope warring within me. Sarah's silence screamed louder than the wind. She didn't know I'd spent millions, chased every lead, lived for this reunion. The children, unaware I was their father, clung to her, their protector. I needed to bridge this chasm, to uncover the truth of our separation. Why did she fear me? What had broken her trust? I stepped closer, the rain masking my tears, vowing to fight for them, to unravel the past, no matter the cost. This was my family, and I'd burn the world to keep them safe. I'm Alexander Sterling, a billionaire forged from ambition, my name etched on skyscrapers, yet my Manhattan penthouse is a hollow shrine to loss. Wealth buys power, not peace. 6 years ago, Sarah Jenkins, my heart's anchor, disappeared, leaving a void no fortune can fill. In a Maine cabin, we wove dreams of forever. Then she was gone, with whispers of a child I never met. My days are a blur of boardrooms. My nights a torment of memories, her laugh, her touch, now phantoms. I've hunted her through cities and shadows, spent millions on detectives, but found only echoes. The world hails me as untouchable. I'm a man unraveling, haunted by a love I can't reclaim, clinging to the fragile hope she's alive, somewhere, waiting. That Maine cabin haunts me, its pine-scented air a ghost in my lungs. Under a star-strewn sky, Sarah and I planned a family, her hand warm in mine. I gave her a yellow toy car, a playful promise for our unborn child. We laughed, drunk on love, vowing eternity. At dawn, she was gone, no note, no goodbye. I scoured the cabin, the woods, found nothing. Her absence carved a wound that festers still. Was it betrayal, or something darker? I replay her voice, now silenced, and see that toy car in my dreams, a cruel emblem of a life stolen. Each unanswered call to her memory deepens the scar, a reminder of love lost to an unknown thief. Rain-soaked Central Park stretched before me, its paths slick under a gray New York sky. When I saw them, Sarah and 3 children huddled under a dripping awning. She sold crude paintings, her hands trembling, while the kids, thin as reeds, shivered in patched coats. I approached, heart racing, but Sarah's eyes narrowed, a fortress of distrust. "Stay away, Alex," she snapped, shielding them. The eldest, Chloe, stared, her gaze piercing, while Leo and Finn clung to her. I offered food, shelter, anything, but she refused, her voice sharp with fear. Nobody called my name with kindness anymore. I was a stranger to my own blood. The park's chatter faded, leaving only her rejection, a blade twisting in my chest. I'd built empires, yet here, I was nothing, a man begging for a glance from his family. Their hunger, their fear, mirrored my own isolation. I stood frozen, a billionaire rendered powerless by a mother's protective glare. Then, the truth cut deeper. Sarah's voice trembled as she revealed the lie that shattered us. 6 years ago, my mother, Victoria Sterling, orchestrated our ruin. She fed me stories of Sarah's betrayal, claiming she'd fled with another man, while telling Sarah I'd abandoned her, discarding our love like a used contract. I believed the lies, each word a brick in the wall between us. Victoria's cruelty stole years, hid my children, and left Sarah to scrape by in shadows. The betrayal burned, not just of Sarah, but of the mother I trusted. How could family wield such venom? The park's rain felt like tears for a life stolen by deception. I couldn't stay silent. In a quiet diner, I faced Sarah across a worn table, the kids nibbling fries, watching me warily. "I didn't leave you," I said, voice steady despite the storm inside. "I was lied to, same as you." Sarah's eyes flickered, doubt warring with hope. I vowed to uncover every secret, to fight for them. Chloe clutched that yellow toy car, a relic of our lost dreams. I stood, resolve hardening, and stepped into the rain, no longer the broken man who'd wandered New York streets. I'd face Victoria, unravel her schemes, and reclaim my family, no matter the cost. The city's pulse mocked my unraveling heart as I sat alone in my penthouse, the skyline glittering like a lie. Fear coiled inside me. A serpent whispering I'd lose Sarah and the children again. What if they slipped through my fingers, vanishing into New York's shadows? I'd found them, yet felt further from them than ever. Chloe's wary eyes, Leo's trembling hands, Finn's silence, they haunted me. Was I their father or a stranger they'd never trust? The yellow toy car sat on my desk. A cruel relic of dreams crushed by betrayal. I feared not just losing them, but failing them, my wealth powerless against their pain. Night after night, I replayed Sarah's words in that diner. Her voice brittle with hurt, accusing me of a past I didn't choose. What if Victoria's lies had poisoned them against me forever? My empire, my name, meant nothing if I couldn't bridge this chasm. The city's hum became a dirge, each honk a reminder of my isolation. I'd built walls to shield my heart, but now they trapped me, alone with memories of a Maine cabin where love once bloomed. Could I face Sarah's distrust, the children's fear, without breaking? The wind rattled the windows, echoing my dread. If I pushed forward, I risked shattering their fragile world. Yet standing still meant surrendering to the void. You ever feel like the weight of your mistakes could crush you? I did, every sleepless night, staring at that toy car, praying for a way to make them whole. Victoria's shadow loomed larger than the skyscrapers outside. Her threats weren't just words, they were a noose tightening around my family. Sarah had whispered of an incident in Central Park where Leo nearly fell under a speeding bike, orchestrated, she believed, by Victoria's hand. My mother, with her polished smile and iron will, had built the sterling name on control, but this? Threatening her own grandchildren? It chilled me. She'd sent a courier to Sarah's shelter, offering cash to disappear, paired with a note. The Sterlings don't tolerate stains. Sarah showed me the crumpled paper, her hands shaking. In public, Victoria was a philanthropist. In private, a predator guarding her legacy. I saw it now, her cold eyes at family dinners, dismissing my dreams of a life with Sarah as beneath us. She'd engineered our separation, but this was war. Her influence stretched into boardrooms, police stations, even the press. Could I fight her without endangering Sarah and the kids? The park incident wasn't random. It was a warning, public and brazen, meant to paralyze Sarah with fear. You ever face someone who destroy everything you love to win? I stood at my window, the city sprawling below, feeling like a man on a ledge. Victoria's power was a storm, and I was a sapling in its path. Yet, for Chloe's fierce glare, for Leo's fragile smile, for Finn's quiet strength, I had to stand firm, even if it meant tearing down the only family I'd known. A spark flickered in me, faint but unyielding, under the weight of fear and betrayal. In the diner, I'd seen it, Sarah's hesitation, a crack in her armor when I swore I'd never abandoned her. That yellow toy car, clutched by Finn, wasn't just a ghost. It was proof of our bond, a promise I'd fight to keep. I couldn't erase their years of struggle, but I could build a future. The city's chaos faded as I focused on their faces, Chloe's defiance, Leo's curiosity, Finn's quiet watchfulness. They were my reason, my strength. I hired David Miller, a retired investigator with a nose for truth, to dig into Victoria's schemes. It was a small step, but it felt like planting a seed in barren soil. You ever find hope in the darkest moment? I did. Imagining a day when Sarah would smile without fear, when the kids would call me Dad. My penthouse, once a tomb, became a war room. I'd face Victoria's empire, her lies, her threats, not for revenge, but for love. The wind outside softened, carrying a whisper of Maine's pines, reminding me of the man I was with Sarah, flawed, but fearless. I wasn't alone anymore. I had a family to fight for. And that spark would grow into a fire no one, not even Victoria, could extinguish. New York streets buzzed with secrets as I began unraveling the lie that stole my family. Doubt not at me. Was I chasing ghosts, or was Victoria's betrayal as deep as Sarah claimed? I couldn't rest until I knew. With David Miller, my trusted investigator, I scoured the past. Starting with that Maine cabin, we tracked down the hotel's old records, yellowed receipts, and a retired clerk who remembered a woman, Victoria, demanding Sarah's whereabouts. My heart raced. This wasn't paranoia. I pored over Sarah's story, her years in hiding, piecing together timelines in my penthouse, now a labyrinth of notes and maps. The yellow toy car sat on my desk, urging me forward. Why had Victoria lied? What did she fear from Sarah, from our children? I called old contacts, dug into family accounts, noticing odd payments from 6 years ago. Each clue was a pebble in a stream, leading to a hidden truth. The city's neon glow felt like a spotlight, exposing my vulnerability. Could I trust my own memories of that night in Maine? Or had I been blind to my mother's control? You ever question everything you thought was true? I did, pacing under skyscrapers, feeling the weight of a family I'd only just found. Sarah's fear, Chloe's guarded stare, Leo's fragile trust. They drove me. I wasn't just a billionaire anymore. I was a father, a man seeking redemption. The wind carried whispers of pine, reminding me of Sarah's laugh. I'd find the truth, not for revenge, but to give my children a future free from shadows, even if it meant dismantling the sterling legacy brick by brick. A faint thread emerged, pulling me deeper into Victoria's web. David uncovered a name, Margaret, the hotel clerk who'd relayed Victoria's lies to Sarah, claiming I'd left her. We found Margaret in a Queen's diner, her hands trembling as she admitted Victoria paid her to deceive us both. My blood ran cold. This was no mistake, but a calculated strike. A bank transfer from Victoria's account to Margaret's, dated the day Sarah vanished, confirmed it. Then, a stranger's tip led us to a burner phone record, linking Victoria to a thug who'd tailed Sarah in New York. The park incident with Leo wasn't random, it was her warning. My mother's ruthlessness stunned me, her charity galas a mask for this darkness. Each discovery was a gust of wind, clearing the fog of 6 lost years. Yet, every step risked exposing Sarah and the kids. Victoria's reach was vast, lawyers, media, even cops. Could I outmaneuver her without endangering them? You ever find a truth that terrifies you? I stood in Central Park, where Leo nearly fell, the grass still scarred, and felt the stakes. The children's faces, Finn's quiet strength, Chloe's defiance, burned in my mind. I couldn't stop now. The city's pulse matched my resolve, each clue a step toward justice. I clutched a photo of that yellow toy car, a beacon in the storm, vowing to protect my family from the woman who'd raised me, no matter how deep her secrets ran. I made my choice under a starless New York sky, the city's hum a call to action. No more waiting, no more doubts. I'd confront Victoria's lies head-on. I told David to gather every document, every witness, and prepare for war. In my penthouse, I wrote a letter to Sarah, not to send, but to anchor myself. I'll make this right for you, for them. The words felt like a vow carved in stone. I called a journalist friend, risking Victoria's wrath, and asked for help exposing the truth. My hands shook, knowing this could unravel my empire, my name. But what was wealth without family? You ever stake everything on a single truth? I saw Chloe's eyes, fierce yet fragile, and knew I had no choice. The yellow toy car gleamed under my lamp, a symbol of the life I'd reclaim. I wasn't just fighting for Sarah, Leo, Finn, and Chloe. I was fighting for the man I could be. The city's skyline stretched before me, no longer a cage, but a battlefield. Victoria's power loomed. But so did my resolve. I'd tear down her lies, not for vengeance, but for love, for a chance to hear my children laugh under a Maine sky, free from fear. This was my stand. My first true step toward redemption, and I'd walk it, no matter the cost, with the wind of hope at my back. My heart pounded as I stepped into the Lion's Den, Victoria's Manhattan office. Its glass walls gleaming like ice. I'd never confronted her before, but for Sarah and the kids, I'd face a hurricane. Why did you lie? I demanded, voice steady, holding the bank transfer proving her payment to Margaret. Her eyes, cold as winter, flickered with surprise, but she deflected, calling it a misunderstanding. I pressed, citing the burner phone. The park incident with Leo. Her silence was deafening, a crack in her armor. I wasn't the son she'd molded anymore. I was a father fighting for his own. The city's hum vibrated through the windows, urging me on. You ever risk everything for a truth no one wants to hear? I laid out my evidence, each word a stone cast against her empire. She threatened to disown me, to bury me in lawsuits. But I stood firm, fueled by Chloe's fierce gaze, Finn's quiet strength. Leaving, I felt the weight of my gamble. Had I pushed too far, endangering Sarah's fragile trust? The elevator's descent mirrored my fear, but also my resolve. I'd taken my first step, reckless but necessary, under New York's unforgiving sky. The yellow toy car in my pocket felt heavier. A reminder of the family I'd fight for, no matter the storm. Victoria's power loomed, but I'd ignited something unstoppable. The streets below buzzed with life, their energy seeping into me. Whispering of Maine's pines and a future where my children could run free, unshadowed by lies. A small victory came, but with thorns. David secured a recording of Margaret confessing Victoria's orders to lie, a concrete shard of truth. I shared it with Sarah in a cramped Brooklyn cafe, her eyes softening for the first time. A fragile bridge between us. The kids, nearby, colored quietly, unaware of the war I waged. Chloe glanced up, clutching that yellow toy car, and I dared to hope she'd one day call me Dad. But Victoria struck back. Her lawyers sent a cease and desist letter, accusing me of defamation, threatening to seize my assets. A tabloid, likely her doing, smeared Sarah as a gold digger, twisting her struggle into lies. The city's pulse quickened, a warning of the battle ahead. You ever taste hope, only to choke on fear? I did, reading those headlines, knowing they'd scare Sarah deeper into hiding. Yet, that recording was a lifeline, proof I wasn't mad, that our pain had a source. I fortified my resolve, meeting a sympathetic editor who promised to dig into Victoria's finances. Each step forward met a wall. Her influence ran deep, from boardrooms to newsstands. Central Park's trees swayed outside, their branches like arms shielding my purpose. I couldn't falter. Leo's near miss there haunted me, a reminder of Victoria's reach. My wealth, once a shield, now felt like chains. But I'd break them for my family, for a chance to see Finn smile without fear. I stood in my penthouse, the skyline no longer a cage but a canvas for my vow. I wouldn't be the man who cowered, who let Victoria's lies bury my children's future. Staring into the mirror, I saw not a billionaire, but a father, scarred yet unyielding. I burned my doubts, writing them on paper and tearing them to ash. You ever shed the skin of who you were? I did, clutching that yellow toy car, its chipped paint a map of my purpose. I called David, demanding we push harder, chase every lead, no matter the risk. Sarah's hesitant trust, Chloe's guarded eyes, they were my North Star. I'd face lawsuits, smears, even ruin, to give them a home under Maine's open sky. The city's lights flickered like hope, each one a promise to Leo, Finn, and Chloe. I wasn't perfect. My blindness to Victoria's cruelty proved that. But I'd never again be silent. The wind outside carried a whisper of spring, of roots taking hold. My commitment wasn't just to truth, but to love, to rebuilding what was stolen. I'd fight, not for the sterling name, but for the family I'd claim, step by grueling step, until we stood together, unbroken, under a sky free of shadows. I stepped into the Sterling Corporation's grand auditorium, its chandeliers casting light like 1,000 eyes. The press conference I'd called was a gamble, but Sarah and the kids deserved truth, not shadows. Cameras flashed as I faced the crowd, reporters, board members, and Victoria, her face a mask of calm. My voice echoed, steady. My mother, Victoria Sterling, tore my family apart. I played Margaret's confession, her trembling voice detailing Victoria's payment to lie about Sarah's departure. Gasps rippled through the room. I showed bank transfers, burner phone logs, and a witness statement tying Victoria to Leo's near accident in Central Park. The evidence was ironclad, each piece a root breaking through stone. You ever stand naked before the world, armed only with truth? My heart raced, but Chloe's fierce eyes, Finn's quiet strength, kept me grounded. Victoria's composure cracked. She rose, voice sharp, accusing me of betrayal. The room tensed, but I held firm, fueled by years of stolen moments. Sarah's laughter in Maine, the yellow toy car's chipped paint. New York's skyline loomed beyond the windows, a reminder of the empire I risked. Whispers grew. Reporters scribbled furiously. I wasn't just exposing Victoria, I was reclaiming my family's story. The air felt alive, charged with the weight of justice. Sarah watched from a hidden feed, her trust fragile but growing. I'd lit a spark, and the world was watching, its pulse syncing with mine. For Leo, for Finn, for Chloe, I'd tear down lies, even if it meant standing alone under the city's unforgiving glare. Victoria's mask shattered as I played the final tape, a recorded threat to Sarah, her voice cold, promising to erase the problem of my children. The auditorium fell silent, then erupted. Reporters shouted questions. Board members shifted uncomfortably. I laid bare her schemes. The lies that split me from Sarah, the money trail, the orchestrated fear that drove Sarah into hiding. Victoria stood, face pale, and tried to spin a tale of protecting the family name. But the evidence was a tidal wave. Margaret's testimony, the park incident's witness, and financial records painted her as a manipulator, not a matriarch. You ever see a giant fall? Their shadow shrinking before your eyes? Her charity galas, her polished speeches, dust now. I felt no joy, only a hollow ache for the mother I'd once loved. The yellow toy car in my pocket burned. A relic of the family she tried to erase. Sarah's face, watching remotely, held a flicker of relief, but Chloe's guarded stare reminded me trust wasn't won yet. The city's hum filtered through the walls, a chorus of awakening. Victoria's allies faltered. One board member stood, demanding her resignation. The truth, buried for 6 years, roared free. Its roots deep in Maine's soil, where Sarah and I once dreamed. I'd unmasked a villain, but at what cost? My name, my legacy, teetered. Yet, for my children's future, I'd face the storm. Knowing this moment was theirs, a step toward a sky unclouded by fear. The room's silence broke like dawn. A reporter clapped, then another, until applause swelled, a tide turning. Eyes that once doubted me now shone with respect. You're a father fighting for his kids, one whispered, and I felt the shift, society's gaze bending toward truth. Board members nodded. A rival CEO? Long silent, offered support. The press frenzy grew, headlines already forming. Sterling Air exposes matriarch's lies. You ever feel the world rewrite your story? I did, standing there. The weight of 6 years lifting. Sarah messaged me. They believe you. Her words were a lifeline, fragile but real. Chloe, Leo, and Finn weren't in the room, but their faces fueled me. The yellow toy car, tucked away, felt lighter, a symbol not of loss, but of fight. Victoria left, escorted out, her power crumbling like autumn leaves. The city outside pulsed with new rhythm. Its lights no longer cold, but warm, like campfires under Maine's pines. Strangers approached, sharing stories of their own battles, their voices weaving a community I'd never known. I wasn't alone anymore. The applause faded, but the truth lingered, a seed planted in New York's heart. For my family, I'd turned pain into power, proving that even in a city of steel, love could break through, unyielding, like roots through stone. The auditorium's applause faded, but peace didn't follow. In my penthouse, New York's skyline mocked my hollow victory. I'd exposed Victoria, yet doubt gnawed at me. Had I destroyed more than I saved? Sarah's cautious trust, Chloe's guarded eyes, haunted me. Was I their savior or a wrecking ball, shattering their fragile world? The yellow toy car sat on my desk, its chip paint a mirror to my flaws. I believed Victoria's lies for years, blind to her cruelty. What kind of father fails to see the truth? My wealth, my name, felt like chains, not strength. You ever win a battle but lose yourself? I paced, the city's hum a relentless judge. Memories of Maine flooded back, Sarah's laugh, our dreams now tainted by my ignorance. Had I pushed too far, demanding justice at the cost of their safety? Leo's near miss in the park replayed. A warning I might have provoked worse. I questioned every choice, confronting Victoria, risking the press. Was I driven by love or ego? The wind rattled the windows, carrying whispers of failure. I saw my reflection, a man rich in power but poor in wisdom, who'd let a mother's lies steal 6 years. Chloe's defiance, Finn's silence, they deserved better than a father stumbling in the dark. The city's lights blurred through my tears, each one a question. Could I be the man they needed? Doubt was a tide, pulling me under, but their faces, Sarah's resilience, Leo's fragile smile, kept me afloat, barely, as I wrestled with the fear that my fight might break us all. Deeper fears clawed at me, roots buried in childhood. Victoria's cold voice echoed from years past, calling me weak, unworthy of the sterling name. I'd built an empire to prove her wrong, but had I become her, wielding power without heart? The penthouse felt like her mansion, where I learned to hide my softness. You ever fear you're the monster you hate? I saw Sarah's pain, the kids' hunger, and wondered if my absence, my blindness, made me complicit. Nightmares gripped me, Chloe turning away, Leo lost in a crowd, Finn's eyes empty. I feared they'd never need me, that my love was too late, a seed sown in barren soil. Memories of Maine stung sharper, Sarah's hand in mine, promising forever, now a ghost I'd failed to protect. I sat, clutching that yellow toy car, its way to judgment. Victoria's betrayal wasn't just hers. It was mine, for trusting her, for not searching harder. The city's pulse slowed, a dirge for the boy I'd been, who craved a mother's approval. Could I be a father when I'd never felt whole? Panic rose, a storm in my chest, as I faced the truth. I feared not just losing them, but being unworthy of their love. A man who'd traded heart for gold, standing alone under a sky that offered no answers. Then, a shift, fragile as dawn. I stood, the toy car in my hand, and saw not failure, but survival, Sarah's strength, the kids' resilience. I wasn't perfect, but I was theirs, flaws and all. You ever find light in your darkest mirror? I wrote their names, Chloe, Leo, Finn, Sarah, on a page, a vow to be more than my doubts. I'd failed before, believed lies, but I'd also found them, fought for them. The city's lights softened, like stars over Maine, guiding me back. I didn't need to be a titan, just a father who showed up, who loved without fear. I forgave myself, not fully, but enough to move forward, to accept my scars as maps, not chains. The wind outside whispered of spring, of roots growing deep. I'd build a home, not an empire, for their laughter, their trust. Victoria's shadow lingered, but I was no longer her son, bound by her rules. I was Alexander, a man who'd stumbled but stood, ready to face the storm for his family. The yellow toy car gleamed, a beacon, not of loss, but of love reclaimed. I'd walk this path, imperfect but unyielding, for the chance to see Leo smile, to hear Chloe's laugh, to hold Sarah under a sky where fear had no place. New York's air crackled with judgment after the press conference. The city's pulse a divided drumbeat. Social media split like a fault line, half hailed me as a hero, a father fighting for his children. Others branded me a traitor, spinning tales I'd fabricated Victoria's sins for fame. Headlines clashed. Sterling's son saves family versus Billionaire's vendetta tears legacy apart. Strangers stopped me in Central Park, some offering handshakes, others spitting accusations of greed. You ever feel the world's eyes carve you into pieces? I did, reading tweets that praised Sarah's courage, then blogs calling her a liar. The yellow toy car in my pocket felt heavier, a tether to my truth amid the storm. Board members whispered, their loyalty wavering, while tabloids dug into my past, twisting old deals into scandals. Supporters rallied online, sharing hashtag justice for Sarah, but the venom stung. Anonymous threats warned I'd pay for defying Victoria. The city skyscrapers loomed like jurors, their windows reflecting my doubt. Had I freed my family or exposed them to worse? Sarah's texts grew sparse, her fear palpable. Chloe's silence cut deeper than words. I walked the Hudson's edge, its waves echoing Maine's tides, where I'd once held Sarah under starlight. The public's roar was a gale, uprooting my resolve. Yet, Leo's fragile smile, Finn's quiet watchfulness, kept me standing. The community's divide wasn't just noise, it was a mirror, showing me the cost of truth. I'd stirred a city's heart, but at what price to my children's safety, to the fragile trust we'd barely built? Victoria's counterattack was a blade, swift and precise. Her legal team filed a defamation suit, demanding millions, claiming I'd forged evidence to ruin her. She held a rival press conference, tears glistening, painting herself as a mother betrayed by a reckless son. Her allies flooded the airwaves, leaking doctored emails suggesting I'd blackmailed Margaret. You ever see lies spread like wildfire? My phone buzzed with threats, some to me, others chillingly aimed at Sarah and the kids. A brick crashed through my penthouse window, a note tied to it. Drop it, or they're next. Victoria's hand was clear, her influence a net tightening around us. She swayed board members, threatening to tank Sterling stock if I didn't recant. Reporters who'd cheered me now wavered, lured by her narrative. Sarah called, voice trembling, saying she'd seen a man watching their shelter. The park incident with Leo flashed back. Her reach was endless. I stood in my office, the city's glow dimmed, feeling her power choke my hope. The yellow toy car sat on my desk. A faint pulse of defiance. I'd underestimated her, thinking truth would shield us. Now, my family was exposed, their safety a pawn in her game. The wind outside howled, a warning of the storm's peak. For Chloe's fierce heart, for Finn's silent strength, I couldn't yield, but fear gnawed. Could I protect them when the woman who raised me wielded lies like a god? The weight crushed me. pushing me to the edge. Victoria's lawsuit froze my accounts, her lawyers claiming I'd misused company funds. Allies distanced themselves. Even David faced harassment, his car vandalized. Sarah considered fleeing again, her voice breaking over the phone, fearing for Leo, Chloe, Finn. You ever feel the ground vanish beneath you? I did, standing in my half-empty penthouse. The city's lights now daggers. Tabloids screamed I was unhinged, a billionaire undone by obsession. My board voted to suspend me, citing instability. I was cornered, isolated. My empire crumbling like dry leaves. Sarah's shelter reported a break-in. Nothing stolen, but fear sown deep. Victoria's shadow loomed, her message clear: surrender or lose everything. I saw Chloe's guarded eyes in my mind, Finn's clutched toy car, and felt my heart fracture. Could I keep fighting when every step risked their lives? The Hudson's waves crashed below, their rhythm a faint echo of Maine's hope, now distant. I was a man stripped bare, no wealth, no allies, just a father clinging to a fading spark. The city's pulse slowed, a requiem for my defiance. Yet, in that darkness, their faces, Sarah's resilience, Leo's quiet trust, whispered I wasn't done. I'd fall, but not break, for the family I'd vowed to save. Even if it meant facing a storm no one could outrun. In my darkest hour, New York's shadows parted, and a light broke through. Rachel Harper, a retired journalist who'd once exposed corporate fraud, found me in a dim Brooklyn cafe, her eyes sharp but kind. I've been following your story, Alexander, she said, sliding a folder across the table. Inside were documents, more proof of Victoria's payoffs, linking her to the thug who'd stalked Sarah. I believe you, she added, her voice steady, like an anchor in a storm. You ever meet someone who sees your truth when the world doubts? My hands trembled, clutching the yellow toy car in my pocket, its chipped paint a reminder of why I fought. Rachel had no reason to help, yet here she was, risking her quiet life for my family. The city's hum softened, its neon glow a faint echo of Maine's starlight, where Sarah and I once dreamed. Her belief was a lifeline, pulling me from despair. I'd been alone, cornered by Victoria's lies, my accounts frozen, Sarah teetering on fleeing. Rachel's folder held names, dates, transactions, ammunition to fight back. For Chloe's fierce heart, Leo's fragile trust, Finn's silent strength, I accepted her help, feeling the weight of isolation lift. The cafe's warmth wrapped around us, a haven in the city's chaos. I wasn't just a billionaire fallen. I was a father with an ally, a man who'd found a spark in the dark. Rachel's resolve mirrored Sarah's, a reminder that truth could grow, like roots through stone, even in a city that seemed to forget. We forged a bond, Rachel and I, in that cafe, our voices low, plotting like rebels under New York's watchful spires. She introduced me to her network, other journalists, a lawyer who'd tangled with Victoria's kind, even a hacker who'd traced her shell companies. Together, we built a case, stronger than my lone efforts with David. You ever find strength in strangers who become family? We met in hidden corners, shared stories of battles against power, their scars mirroring mine. Rachel's courage, her dogged pursuit of truth, reminded me of Sarah's resilience, raising our kids in shadows. I showed her a photo of Chloe, Leo, Finn. Their eyes my compass. They're why I can't stop, I said, and she nodded, understanding loss in her own quiet way. The city's pulse quickened, its streets alive with our purpose. We uncovered a witness, a former Sterling aide, who'd seen Victoria bribe officials to bury Sarah's existence. Each piece tightened our net, but danger loomed. Rachel's car was tailed, my phone hacked. Yet, our bond grew, a fire fed by shared defiance. The yellow toy car sat on our table, a silent vow. For Sarah's hesitant smile, for Finn's clutched toy, I leaned into this alliance. No longer a lone warrior. Central Park's trees swayed outside, their branches whispering of Maine's pines, of a future where my children could run free. Held by a community born from truth's fragile seed. Our fight spread, a ripple becoming a wave. Rachel's article, published online, went viral, detailing Victoria's crimes with our evidence. Strangers shared it, hashtag Justice for Sarah trending across platforms. You ever see a city wake up? I did, reading comments from mothers, fathers, survivors, their stories echoing ours. A rally formed outside Sterling Tower, hundreds chanting for truth, holding signs for Sarah, Chloe, Leo, Finn. My heart swelled. I wasn't alone anymore. The lawyer filed a countersuit, using our evidence to dismantle Victoria's claims. Donations poured in, funding Sarah's safety, a new shelter far from danger. The city's skyline glittered, no longer a cage, but a beacon. Rachel stood with me at the rally, her voice booming, calling Victoria's empire a house of lies. The crowd roared, their unity a tide lifting us. I saw Sarah watching from a safe distance, her eyes softening, Chloe's hand in hers. The yellow toy car, tucked in my pocket, felt warm, a symbol of hope reborn. Victoria's allies faltered, some turning against her, sensing the shift. Maine's winds seemed to blow through New York, carrying the promise of a home I'd build. This wasn't just my fight now. It was ours, a community's, growing like wildflowers through concrete. Proving that truth, once spoken, could bind hearts, heal wounds, and light a path for my family's future. Victoria's final strike was a tempest, her desperation a blade aimed at my heart. She unleashed a smear campaign, airing doctored videos claiming I'd coerced witnesses, painting me as a madman obsessed with ruin. Her allies flooded talk shows, dredging up my past, every failed deal, every youthful mistake, twisting them into proof of deceit. You ever see your name carved into lies? Social media erupted, hashtags like #SterlingFraud trending, drowning out #Justice for Sarah. She bribed a former employee to testify I'd fabricated Margaret's confession, their words of venom seeping into public trust. My countersuit stalled. Judges, swayed by her influence, delayed hearings. Sarah called, voice trembling, saying strangers had circled their new shelter, one flashing a Sterling logo. The park incident with Leo felt tame compared to this. Victoria was a storm, uprooting the fragile roots we'd planted. Rachel's articles lost traction, buried under sponsored posts praising Victoria's charity. My penthouse, once a war room, felt like a sinking ship. The city's skyline a cage closing in. The yellow toy car sat on my desk, its chipped paint a fading beacon. I feared for Chloe's fierce spirit, Leo's fragile hope. Finn's quiet trust, could I shield them when her reach seemed boundless? New York's pulse thrummed with her power, its lights dimming my resolve. Yet, their faces Sarah's resilience. Finn's clutched toy stirred a fire. I'd faced her before, but this was her endgame, a challenge to break me. The wind outside howled, echoing Maine's wild call, urging me to stand, to fight. For the family I'd vowed to save. I faced her in the Sterling boardroom, its glass walls reflecting New York's dusk like a battlefield. Cameras rolled, live streaming to millions. As I met Victoria's gaze, ice-cold, unyielding. You tore us apart, I said, voice steady, presenting our evidence. Margaret's sworn affidavit, the aide's testimony, bank records. And that chilling threat to Sarah. She countered, voice silk, accusing me of forging it all, her tears a performance for the world. You ever stared down a lie that shaped your life? I played the recording again, her voice promising to erase my children, and the room gasped. Rachel stood beside me, her latest article projected, detailing Victoria's bribes to silence witnesses. The board shifted, their loyalty cracking. I spoke of Sarah's years in hiding, Chloe's guarded eyes, Leo's near miss in the park, my pain raw, unfiltered. Victoria lunged, calling me ungrateful. But I held the yellow toy car aloft, its chipped paint a testament to our stolen dreams. The live stream chat exploded, viewers rallying, their voices a tide against her. I wasn't just a son now, but a father, fighting for truth. The city's hum joined the chorus, its skyscrapers witnesses to her fall. Sarah watched from safety, her text, keep going my anchor. I demanded her resignation. My words a root-breaking stone. Victoria faltered, the room's silence her defeat, as Maine's wind seemed to blow through, carrying hope for a family reborn. The truth broke free. A dawn after endless night. Victoria's resignation came hours later, announced in a terse statement as she fled the public eye. The board ousted her. Sterling stopped plummeting, but free of her shadow. Crowds gathered outside, chanting for Sarah, for justice, their signs a forest of support. You ever feel a city's heart turn? I did, reading #Family Reunited trend worldwide. Strangers sharing stories of their own fights. Rachel's article hit millions, her words a lighthouse in the storm. Courts fast-tracked our suit, validating our evidence. Victoria's allies recanted. Her empire dust. Sarah stepped into the light, joining me at a presser, her hand in mine. Chloe, Leo, Finn beside us. The yellow toy car, now in Finn's hand, gleamed. No longer a ghost, but a promise kept. The city's skyline sparkled, its lights warm, like campfires under Maine's pines. Viewers sent messages. You gave me courage. I wasn't alone, my family, Rachel. This community, were roots entwined. Victoria's fall wasn't my victory. It was theirs, a testament to love's defiance. The wind carried spring's breath, whispering of a home we'd build. Free from fear. I looked at Sarah, at our children, and knew, truth, though buried, always rises like wildflowers through concrete, binding us under a sky where no shadow could linger. Victory came. But its weight was heavier than I'd imagined. Victoria's fall cost me dearly. My name, once a beacon of power, now whispered in boardrooms as a cautionary tale. The Sterling Empire, my life's work, teetered, stock prices plummeting, investors fleeing. Old friends turned away, their calls unanswered, their loyalty tied to wealth I no longer wielded. You ever lose the mask you wore too long? I stood in my penthouse, half its art sold to fund our fight, the skyline no longer mine. Sarah and the kids were safe, but at what price? Chloe's guarded eyes still held doubt. Leo's smile, though brighter, flickered with memories of hunger. I'd exposed the truth, but lost the mother I'd known. Her betrayal wound deeper than her lies. The yellow toy car sat on a bare shelf. Its chip painted a reminder of dreams reclaimed, yet tainted by sacrifice. New York's pulse felt distant, its lights cold, like stars I couldn't reach. I traded my legacy for their freedom. But the emptiness gnawed. Had I given them a future, or just a different cage? Rachel's articles kept us afloat, but the world's applause couldn't fill the void of family ties severed. Of a past I'd never reclaim. Central Park's paths, where I'd found them, now stretched like scars across my heart. For Sarah's hesitant touch, for Finn's quiet strength, I'd paid this price. But the loss lingered, a shadow under Maine's pines, whispering that truth, though freeing, always carves its toll from your soul. I faced the wreckage with open eyes, no longer running from the cost. My penthouse, now a modest apartment, held only what mattered: photos of Chloe, Leo, Finn, Sarah. I cut ties with Sterling's remnants, resigning from a board that no longer trusted me. You ever let go of what defined you? I walked New York's streets, a man without a title, yet strangely free. The lawsuits drained my wealth, but I accepted it, knowing each dollar spent shielded my family from Victoria's reach. Sarah's fear eased, her paintings selling, but she still woke from nightmares, her trust a fragile bridge. I took the kids to a park, their laughter a balm, though Chloe's distance reminded me healing wasn't instant. The world moved on, headlines fading, leaving us to rebuild alone. I sold my last watch, a Rolex, to fund their school, feeling no regret. The city's hum softened, its skyscrapers no longer judges, but witnesses to my choice. I'd lost Victoria, not just her lies, but the mother I'd hoped she'd be. Yet, for Leo's curious gaze, for Finn's clutched toy car, I embraced this solitude. Maine's winds seemed to blow through, carrying seeds of a new life. I wasn't a billionaire anymore, but a father, learning to stand without armor, to live for their smiles, not a legacy that never truly fit. I rebuilt from ash, not to reclaim the past, but to forge something true. I started a small consulting firm, advising startups, my experience a tool, not a crown. You ever find purpose in starting over? I moved us to a lakeside home, 50 miles from New York, its waters reflecting a sky unclouded by ambition. Sarah painted there, her art blooming, each stroke a step toward peace. I taught Leo to fish, his laughter echoing. Finn opened up, his words rare but precious. Chloe, still wary, joined us, her sketches fierce, like her heart. I wrote our story, not for fame, but to understand it, sharing it online, where strangers found hope. The yellow toy car sat on our mantle, no longer a wound, but a root, grounding us. New York's chaos faded, its skyline a memory. This lake, these trees, were home. I learned to cook, burned pancakes, laughed with Sarah under starlight, rediscovering the man I'd been in Maine. My wealth was gone, but my heart was full, shaped by loss into something stronger. The wind carried spring's promise of roots deepening, of a family growing whole. I wasn't Alexander Sterling, billionaire, but Alex, a father, a partner, building a life not for applause, but for the quiet joy of their hands and mine under a sky where love was enough. In our lakeside home, 50 miles from New York's clamor, Sarah became my mirror, seeing me beyond the billionaire, beyond the scars. One evening, as the lake reflected a fading sun, she set her paintbrush down and took my hand, her eyes soft, unburdened by past fears. "You're enough, Alex," she said. "No questions. No demands. You ever meet someone who sees your soul, not your shadow?" Her words cracked the walls I'd built, the ones forged in Victoria's cold lessons, in years of chasing a name that never fit. I'd been a titan, then a fighter, but here, I was just Alex, a man learning to breathe. The yellow toy car sat on our mantel, its chipped paint glowing in the dusk, a relic of pain now bathed in warmth. Sarah's belief, quiet yet fierce, was a balm, healing wounds I'd carried since Maine's starry nights. She didn't ask for my story, she lived it with me. Raising Chloe, Leo, Finn through shadows I'd helped banish. The lake's gentle ripples echoed her patience, her love, like the pines that once sheltered our dreams. I'd lost wealth, status, but gained her gaze, a lighthouse in my storm. Chloe's sketches, Finn's shy words, Leo's laughter, they bloomed because of her. And now, because of us. The city's hum was a distant memory, this home. This moment was my truth. Sarah saw me, not as a savior, but as a partner, and in her eyes, I began to see myself anew, whole, under a sky soft with hope. Forgiveness came slowly, like spring after a brutal winter. I sat by the lake, writing a letter to Victoria, not to send, but to release her hold. "I hated you," I wrote, "for stealing Sarah, our kids, our years." The words spilled, raw, naming every lie, every threat, from Maine's cabin to Leo's park scare. "You ever let go of a grudge that shaped you?" I tore the letter, letting its pieces drift on the water, each fragment a chain broken. I forgave myself, too, for believing her lies, for not finding Sarah sooner. The guilt of those lost years, of Chloe's guarded heart, Finn's silence, had been a stone in my chest. But I'd fought, fallen, and risen for them. Sarah's hand on my shoulder, her quiet strength, taught me that forgiveness wasn't for Victoria's sake, but for mine, to live without anger's weight. The lake's surface shimmered, reflecting a sky free of storm clouds, like Maine's clear nights. I thought of Rachel, David, the strangers who'd rallied, and forgave the world for its doubts. Chloe joined me, her sketchbook open, and I smiled, no longer fearing her distance. The wind carried a whisper of growth, of roots deepening. I wasn't erasing pain, but planting over it, choosing love over resentment, for Sarah's steady gaze, for Leo's curious eyes, for a family that deserved a heart unburdened by yesterday's shadows. We planted a maple tree in our yard, its young branches reaching for the sky, a symbol of healing. The kids dug the soil, their hands dirty, laughing as Sarah and I guided the roots into earth. You ever mark a new beginning with something alive? The tree stood where the lake met the horizon, its leaves catching light like hope reborn. The yellow toy car, now Finn's treasure, lay at its base during the planting, a bridge from pain to promise. Chloe sketched the scene, her lines softer. Finn giggled. Leo asked if the tree would grow tall. I saw our past, Maine's cabin. Central Park's fear, woven into this act, not erased, but transformed. The lake's breeze carried scents of pine, tying us to dreams we'd reclaimed. Sarah's paintings hung in our home, vibrant, alive. Her art a testament to survival. My story, shared online, reached thousands, but this tree was ours, a quiet vow to grow, to heal. New York's skyline was a faint memory. Here, under this maple, we were whole. The kids' laughter, Sarah's smile, were roots stronger than any empire. I touched the tree's bark, feeling its pulse, like our families, steady, enduring. This was no end, but a start. A living emblem of love that outlasted lies, blooming where pain once stood, under a sky wide enough for all we'd become. Our lakeside home, 50 miles from New York's chaos, became my sanctuary. Its quiet mornings a balm to old wounds. Each dawn, I brewed coffee, opened the windows, and let the lake's breeze carry away the city's ghosts. Sarah painted by the water, her canvases alive with color, while Chloe, Leo, and Finn ran through the grass, their laughter a melody I'd once only dreamed. You ever wake to a life you never thought you'd earn? I walked the shore, 200 feet of pebbled calm, feeling the earth steady me. The maple tree we'd planted stood tall, its leaves whispering of roots we'd set deep. My consulting work, modest but honest, kept us afloat, no longer chasing empires, but building memories. I taught Finn to skip stones, his shy grin a treasure. Leo asked about stars, his curiosity boundless. Chloe's sketches softened, her trust growing like spring buds. The yellow toy car sat on our mantel, no longer a scar but a star, guiding us home. New York's skyline was a distant memory, its steel replaced by this lake's gentle ripples, reflecting a sky wide as Maine's. Sarah's hand in mine, warm under the porch light, anchored me. We'd left the storm behind, not unscathed, but stronger, our family a tapestry woven from pain and love. The wind carried scents of pine, tying us to dreams reborn. This life, simple yet full, was my redemption. A quiet hymn to the family I'd fought for, blooming where shadows once fell. I turned our pain into purpose, reaching beyond our lake's edge. With Sarah, I started a fund, named for Chloe, Leo, Finn, to help families torn apart by secrets, offering shelter, legal aid, hope. You ever turn your scars into someone else's shield? We worked from a small office, 10 miles away, meeting mothers like Sarah, kids with eyes too old for their years. I shared our story at community centers, my voice steady, the yellow toy car in my pocket a touchstone. People listened, their nods a chorus of shared survival. One woman, tears falling, said our fund saved her son from a life like Leo's, hungry and scared. Sarah's paintings funded scholarships, her art a beacon for others. I volunteered at a local youth group, teaching kids to dream beyond their pasts, watching Finn join in, his quiet strength inspiring. Rachel sent updates, her articles still spreading our truth, connecting us to strangers who'd faced their own victorious. The lake's breeze carried their stories to us, each one a thread in a growing tapestry. Central Park's chaos, where I'd found them, felt worlds away. Here, we built something lasting. For Chloe's fierce heart, for Sarah's resilient love, I gave back, not for applause, but to ensure no family endured our darkness alone. The maple tree's shadow stretched, a reminder that love, once planted, could shelter many under a sky free of fear. Our story rippled outward, a call to others. I posted a video online, standing by our maple tree, the lake glinting behind me, sharing how we'd risen from betrayal to love. Tell your story, I urged, voice raw. It might save someone. You ever spark a fire you didn't expect? Views climbed, 10,000, then 1,000,000, comments flooding with tales of loss, fight, healing. A father wrote how he'd found his kids after years apart. A mother shared escaping a lie like Sarah's. We hosted a gathering by the lake, 100 people strong, their voices weaving a community of survivors. Sarah spoke, her words soft but fierce, inspiring tears, then applause. Chloe showed her sketches, Leo beamed, Finn held the yellow toy car, their presence a testament to hope. Rachel joined, her pen still mighty, amplifying our message. The city's hum was gone. This lake, this tree, was our stage, its roots tying us to Maine's dreams. Strangers became allies, their stories fuel for change. I read each comment, feeling their courage mirror ours. The wind carried spring's promise of growth beyond our shore. Our fund grew, helping thousands, proving pain could birth purpose. I looked at Sarah, our kids, under a sky vast as love, and knew our story wasn't just ours, it was a beacon, calling others to rise, to heal, to build a world where no one faced the dark alone. I drove 300 miles to the main cabin, its pine-shadowed walls a ghost of my deepest wound. The lake glittered under a June sky, unchanged since Sarah vanished 6 years ago, yet I was a stranger to the man who'd loved her here. You ever returned to a place that broke you? The cabin's weathered boards creaked, each step stirring dust and memories. Her laugh, our plans, the yellow toy car I'd given her for our unborn child. I stood where she'd stood, the silence heavy with Victoria's lies that tore us apart. Fear lingered, not of the past, but of its hold. Could I face this without crumbling? The lake's ripples carried Maine's breath, steadying me. I touched the doorframe, where we'd carved our initials, now faded. Chloe's fierce eyes, Leo's curious gaze, Finn's quiet strength, they'd brought me back, not to dwell, but to reclaim. New York's chaos, Victoria's betrayal, felt distant. This was where my heart shattered, and where I'd begin to mend it. I walked the shore, 200 feet of gravel crunching, remembering Sarah's hand in mine. The cabin wasn't just pain, it was love. The root of why I fought. You ever see a scar become a map? I did, standing there, the wind whispering of our lake home, where we'd planted a maple. I wasn't the billionaire who'd left here, broken. I was Alex, a father, ready to face the past, not with anger, but with a heart grown wide enough to hold both pain and hope. I met Victoria in a small Maine diner, 10 miles from the cabin. Her face lined, no longer the titan who'd shaped my world. David arranged it, insisting she'd asked to talk. I sat across from her, the yellow toy car in my pocket, its weight a quiet anchor. I didn't come to fight, I said, voice calm, not the son she'd molded, but a man who'd found his own path. You ever speak to someone who broke you, not for blame, but closure? She spoke of regret. Her voice soft, no tears, just facts, her fear of losing the Sterling name, her belief she protected me. I named her wrongs, the lies in this town, the threats to Sarah, Leo's park scare. She didn't flinch, but her eyes dimmed, acknowledging the cost. I didn't need her apology, I needed to reclaim the boy who'd craved her love. The diner's hum faded, Maine's pines framing the windows, tying me to Sarah's strength, Chloe's trust. I told her of our lake home, our maple tree, our fund for families like ours. She listened, a mother hearing her son for the first time. The wind outside carried spring scent, a reminder of roots regrowing. I wasn't erasing her sins, but closing a chapter, for Finn's shy smile, for Leo's laughter. For a family that didn't need her shadow. This wasn't victory, it was peace, a step toward a sky unburdened by her ghost. She nodded, a gesture small but heavy, as the diner's light caught her weary eyes. You're different, she said, not with pride, but recognition. I saw it too, her power gone, her solitude a mirror to the isolation she'd once sown. You ever see change in someone you thought unmovable? I wasn't the boy who'd feared her, nor she the untouchable matriarch. The yellow toy car, warm in my hand, linked us to Maine's cabin, to pain we'd both shaped. I spoke of Chloe's sketches, Finn's growing voice, Sarah's art, not to wound, but to show what I'd gained. Her fingers trembled, a crack in her armor, as she murmured of visiting our fund's work. No promises, just a step. The lake's breeze slipped through the window, tying this moment to our maple tree, to roots that held despite storms. We didn't embrace, we didn't need to. A quiet handshake, her eyes meeting mine, was enough, a nod to lies reshaped. New York's weight, Victoria's lies, dissolved in Maine's clear air. I walked out, the diner's bell chiming, feeling lighter, not because she'd changed, but because I had. For Sarah's steady love, for Leo's curious heart, I'd faced her, not for her, but for me. For a family blooming under a sky where past and present wove together, strong as the pines that stood through every winter. I stood by our lakeside maple, 50 miles from New York's roar. And hit record, the camera catching the lake's shimmer behind me. My hands shook, not from fear, but from the weight of truth. I'm Alex Sterling. I began, voice raw. And this is how I found my family. You ever share a wound to heal others? I spoke of Maine's cabin, Victoria's lies, Sarah's years in hiding, Chloe's guarded eyes, Leo's fragile smile. Finn's yellow toy car. The video traced our path, Central Park's reunion, the press conference, our fund for broken families. I didn't gloss over the pain, the lawsuits, the threats. The nights I doubted I'd win. The maple's leaves rustled, tying me to Maine's pines, to roots that held through storms. Uploaded online, the video spread, 100,000 views in hours, then millions. Comments poured in, strangers sharing their fights, their losses, their hopes. A mother wrote, "Your story gave me strength to find my kids." I read each one, tears falling, by the lake's edge. 200 feet of calm grounding me. Sarah watched, her hand in mine, her paintings now symbols of survival. The city's hum was gone. This tree, this home, was our stage. I wasn't a billionaire anymore, but a father, a voice for those silenced. The wind carried spring's breath, whispering of lives touched. Our story, once a scar, became a beacon, proving pain could spark change. Uniting thousands under a sky where truth, once spoken, grew like wildflowers through stone. The video's reach reshaped the world beyond our lake. Invitations flooded in talk shows, podcasts. A TED Talk in Boston, 300 miles away. I spoke to crowds, the yellow toy car in my pocket, sharing how love outlasted lies. You ever see your story shift a stranger's path? A woman in Chicago said our fund inspired her to expose her family's secrets, reuniting with her son. Our fund grew, helping 5,000 families in a year, offering shelters, lawyers, hope. Sarah joined me, her voice steady, telling of raising Chloe, Leo, Finn in shadows, her art now funding schools. Posts with hashtag Family Reunited sparked movements. Communities rallying against hidden betrayals. Rachel's articles amplified us, her pen a torch. I met survivors, their eyes like Sarah's, resilient, and felt New York's chaos fade, replaced by this lake's quiet power. The maple tree stood taller, its branches a canopy for our mission. Finn's shy words, Chloe's softening sketches, Leo's starlit questions, they fueled me. The wind carried Maine's scent, tying our past to this purpose. Strangers became allies, their stories a chorus of change. I wasn't just Alex. I was a spark, igniting courage in hearts I'd never meet. The lake's ripples spread, like our story, touching shores we couldn't see, proving one family's fight could rewrite rules. Under a sky where love built bridges no light could break. I planted hope. Not just for us, but for anyone lost in the dark. In every talk, I ended with, your story matters, tell it. You ever give someone permission to rise? Letters arrived, 100 in a month. From people who'd faced their own Victorias, found their Sarahs, because of us. A boy, 12, wrote, I'm not scared anymore. Our fund's website crashed from traffic, 10,000 visits daily. Each click a life-seeking light. Sarah and I hosted webinars, Chloe sharing her art, Leo beaming, Finn holding that toy car, their presence a call to keep going. The lake's breeze carried their laughter, a sound stronger than any empire. I saw Maine's cabin in every story shared, its pain now a seed for growth. The city's skyline, once my cage, was a distant star. This home, this tree, was our root. Strangers' courage mirrored ours, their voices a tide lifting all. I read their words by the lake, under a sky vast as hope. Knowing our fight wasn't ours alone. The yellow toy car, on our mantle, gleamed, a symbol of possibility. We'd fallen, fought, healed, and now, we gave others wings. The wind whispered of spring, of lives blooming where shadows fell, proving that one story, told true, could light a world, uniting us under a sky where no one had to face the dark alone. Under our maple tree, 50 miles from New York's clamor, I stood by the lake, its waters reflecting a sky I'd once feared. I had no regrets for this journey, despite its cost, my wealth, my name, the mother I'd lost. You ever look back and choose the path again? I would, for Sarah's steady love, for Chloe's softening gaze, Leo's boundless curiosity, Finn's quiet courage. The main cabin, where Victoria's lies shattered us, was no longer a wound but a root, grounding me to why I fought. The yellow toy car, on our mantle, gleamed, not as pain, but as proof of love reclaimed. I'd faced boardrooms, lawsuits, threats, and my own doubts, each step carving me into a father, not a titan. Our fund, helping thousands, was born from that pain. Its impact a ripple across lives I'd never meet. Central Park's chaos, where I found them, now felt like a distant star. This lake, this tree, was home. The city's hum had faded, replaced by the lake's gentle pulse, echoing Maine's pines. I'd lost an empire but gained a family, a purpose, a truth that held me upright. Sarah's paintings, Chloe's sketches, Leo's laughter, they were my legacy, not skyscrapers. The wind carried spring's warmth, whispering of growth beyond my scars. I stood taller, not for applause, but for the quiet pride of knowing I'd walked through fire for them. This path, with all its thorns, was mine, chosen, cherished, under a sky where love proved stronger than any lie. Blooming where shadows once reigned. The pain itself became my teacher, its lessons etched in my bones. Victoria's betrayal, Sarah's years in hiding, the kids' hunger, each cut shaped me, not into a victim, but a man who learned to love deeper. You ever thank the storm that broke you? I did, by the lake, 200 feet of shore stretching before me, its calm a mirror to my gratitude. The main cabin's silence taught me to listen, to Sarah's resilience, Chloe's guarded heart, Finn's rare words. Losing my wealth stripped me of pride, revealing what mattered, Leo's hand in mine. Sarah's smile under starlight. The lawsuits, the threats, the nights I doubted myself, they forged a strength I hadn't known, one that built our fund, our home. Even Victoria's cruelty, a blade that severed years, showed me forgiveness, not for her, but for me, to live unburdened. The yellow toy car, once a ghost, now sat warm on our mantle, a lesson in endurance. New York skyline. Once my cage, faded, this lake's ripples carried Maine's hope, tying pain to purpose. Each scar was a root, anchoring me to a family I'd fought for, to strangers whose stories echoed ours. The wind whispered of spring, of growth born from loss. I embraced the pain, not as punishment, but as a guide, leading me to a life where love, not power, defined me. Under a sky vast enough for all I'd become. I looked at the lake, its surface a canvas of light, and knew my fight wasn't against Victoria, but for myself, for the man I'd become. I didn't defeat anyone, I said aloud, to the maple, to the sky. I just stopped losing to my fears. You ever find a truth that sets you free? This was mine, a beacon for Sarah, Chloe, Leo, Finn. For the thousands our story touched. The yellow toy car, Finn's treasure, wasn't a relic of loss, but a star, guiding us home. Maine's cabin, Central Park sphere. The press conferences roar. They wove a path to this moment, where I stood, not as a billionaire, but as Alex Whole. Our fund, our lake, our maple tree, they were my victory, not over others, but over the doubts that once chained me. The lake's breeze carried Maine's pines, a promise of roots enduring. I saw Sarah's paintings, Chloe's art, Leo's questions, and felt my heart swell. Not with pride, but peace. The city's lights were gone. This sky, this family, was enough. My words, shared online, reached millions, but here, they were for me, a vow to live true. The wind sang of spring, of love that outlasted lies, and I smiled, knowing I'd won by choosing them, by choosing me, under a sky where no shadow could dim the light we'd grown. By our lakeside maple. 50 miles from New York's den, I sat with a notebook, pen trembling, and wrote to the man I'd been. Dear Alex, who thought wealth was worth, who feared you'd never be enough, I began. The lake's ripples mirroring my heart. You ever speak to the ghost you outgrew? I told him of Maine's cabin, where love with Sarah bloomed, then broke under Victoria's lies. I wrote of nights chasing her approval, building an empire to silence doubts, only to lose Chloe, Leo, Finn for 6 years. You thought power was love, I pinned, but it blinded you to Sarah's pain. To the yellow toy car's promise. The wind carried Maine's pine scent, tying me to that past, to Central Park's reunion, to the fight that cost my name. I whispered to that Alex of boardrooms. Lawsuits, Rachel's courage, our fund's hope. You were enough, even then, I wrote, tears falling, but you couldn't see it. The lake, 200 feet of calm, held my reflection, not a billionaire, but a father, scarred yet whole. I forgave that Alex for trusting Victoria, for not finding Sarah sooner, for fearing failure. The maple's leaves rustled, a chorus of growth. Like our family's laughter, Sarah's, Chloe's, Leo's, Finn's. I wasn't erasing him, but embracing him, his dreams, his pain, his roots of who I'd become. This letter, unread by others, was my vow to live for them, under a sky where past and present wove a tapestry of love, stronger than any empire I'd lost. I faced the flaws I'd loathed, once seen as chains, now as threads of survival. My blindness to Victoria's cruelty, my hunger for her approval, I'd hated these, thinking they made me weak. You ever learn to love what you despised? By the lake. I saw them clearly. My trust in her was a boy's hope for a mother's love, not failure. My ambition, once a cage, built the strength to fight for Sarah, Chloe, Leo, Finn. Even my doubt, that gnawing fear of losing them, kept me vigilant, driving me to Central Park, to the press conference, to our fund. The yellow toy car, Finn's treasure, wasn't just a reminder of loss, but of my heart's stubborn faith. I'd scorned my softness, learned in Maine's cabin, fearing it made me less. Now, it let me hold Leo's hand, hear Chloe's silence, love Sarah's resilience. The lake's breeze, soft as spring, carried Maine's lessons, showing me that my flaws weren't weights, but wings. I wrote them down, blindness, doubt, softness, and smiled, seeing their gifts. New York skyline, once my judge, faded, This tree, this home, held my truth. For Finn's shy grin, for Chloe's fierce art, I thanked these flaws, roots that held me through storms. They weren't failures, but human, shaping a fatherhood rise, not for glory, but for a family blooming under a sky where weakness became strength, woven into love's enduring fabric. I stood before our lake's mirror, 50 feet from the maple, and saw myself, scarred, flawed, enough. For the first time, I smiled at my reflection, no shame, no masks. You ever hold yourself and feel whole? I whispered, you're Alex, not a billionaire, not a savior, but a man who'd walked through fire for Sarah, Chloe, Leo, Finn. The yellow toy car on our mantel gleamed, a star, not a wound. I saw Maine's cabin, Victoria's lies, Central Park's hope, and loved the man who'd stumbled through them. My blindness had led to truth, my doubt to fight, my softness to family. The lake's surface, clear as Maine's sky, showed a father, not perfect, but present, his heart wide as the 200 feet of shore. I embraced my past, not as failure, but as a path to this moment. Sarah's paintings, Chloe's trust, Leo's laughter, Finn's quiet courage. The wind sang of spring, of roots deep as our maple, tying me to thousands our story touched. New York's weight was gone. This lake, this tree, was my mirror, reflecting a man who'd learned to stand, not for applause, but for love. I touched my face, feeling scars as maps, not marks, and vowed to live true for them, for me, under a sky where I was enough, where family bloomed, strong as pines that weathered every storm. By our lakeside home, 50 miles from New York's shadow, I sat under the maple tree, pen in hand, writing to Victoria, the woman who'd torn my world apart. I once wished you'd feel the pain you gave us, I wrote, naming her deeds Maine's lies. Sarah's exile, Leo's park scare, 6 years stolen from Chloe, Finn, me. You ever hold a grudge like a burning coal? I listed the nights I hated her, the days I feared her power, her threats that drove Sarah into hiding. The yellow toy car on our mantel watched, its chip paint a witness to her betrayal. Yet, as the lake's ripples danced, 200 feet of calm, I saw her not as a monster, but a woman chained to her own fears, her need to control. The wind carried Maine's pine scent, tying me to the cabin where she broke us, but also to this home, where we'd healed. I wrote of Sarah's paintings, Chloe's fierce art, Leo's laughter, Finn's quiet strength, lives she couldn't dim. My anger, once a fire, was ash now, not for her sake, but mine. I didn't need her pain. I needed peace, for the family I'd fought for the man I'd become. The maple's leaves rustled, a chorus of release, echoing Sarah's steady love. This letter, never to be sent, was my reckoning, not with her, but with the weight I'd carried, under a sky where love, not hate, defined my roots. I let go of the resentment that had bound me, not to absolve Victoria, but to free myself. Her lies, Maine's cabin, the forged letters, the threats to Sarah, had been a cage, but hating her kept me inside it. You ever release a chain you forged yourself? By the lake, I saw her clearly, a mother who'd lost herself to power, who saw my love for Sarah as a threat, not a gift. I didn't forgive her for her sake. She'd never asked, perhaps never would, but for Chloe's softening trust, for Finn's shy grin, for Leo's boundless questions. My heart, once heavy with her betrayal, lightened as I chose peace over poison. The lake's breeze, soft as Maine's spring, carried away the anger I'd nursed through New York storms, through boardrooms and lawsuits. I thought of our fund, helping thousands, born from her cruelty yet thriving despite it. Sarah's hand in mine, her resilience a beacon, showed me forgiveness was strength, not surrender. The yellow toy car gleamed. No longer a wound, but a root, tying me to a past I'd transcended. The maple tree's shadow stretched, a haven for my family's laughter. I stood, feeling the earth beneath me, 50 miles from Victoria's world, and knew I was free, not because she'd changed, but because I'd chosen love over hate, under a sky where my heart could soar, unburdened by her shadow. I tore the letter into pieces, standing by the lake's edge, and let them float away, each fragment a piece of pain released. You ever watch your past dissolve in delight? The scraps drifted on the water, 200 feet of shimmering calm, catching the sun like stars born from ash. The maple tree watched, its branches swaying, a witness to my freedom. The yellow toy car, Finn's now, sat warm on our mantel, no longer a chain but a spark, linking Maine's pain to this lake's hope. I walked to the maple, touching its bark, feeling its pulse. Like our families, Sarah's steady love, Chloe's fierce heart, Leo's curious gaze, Finn's quiet strength. The act wasn't for Victoria, but for me, for them, a vow to live without her shadow. The wind carried spring's breath, tying me to Maine's pines, to the cabin where we broke, and to this home, where we bloomed. New York's skyline, once my cage, was gone. This lake, this tree, was my sky. I smiled, feeling the earth hold me, 50 miles from her world, as the last paper vanished. The ripples spread, like our story, touching lives beyond our shore. I was free. Not by erasing her, but by choosing love, stepping into sunlight, under a sky where forgiveness grew, strong as roots through stone. I sat by our lake, 50 miles from New York's clamor. Under the maple tree we'd planted, its leaves whispering in the June breeze. The water stretched 200 feet, a mirror of calm, reflecting a sky free of storms. I said nothing. Just listened, the lake's gentle lap, the wind's soft song, Finn's distant laugh. You ever let silence hold you? The yellow toy car sat on our mantle, its chip paint a quiet witness to Maine's pain. Central Park's hope, our fight's triumph. I traced the tree's bark, feeling its pulse, like our families, Sarah's steady love, Chloe's fierce heart, Leo's curious gaze. No words could capture this peace, born from years of loss, lies, and redemption. The lake's ripples carried memories, Victoria's betrayal, Sarah's exile. Our funds rise, each a root beneath this moment. New York's skyline, once my cage, was gone. This was home, where I learned to be Alex, not a billionaire. The breeze, scented with Maine's pines, wove past and present, a thread of healing. I closed my eyes, the silence a canvas, painting Chloe's softening trust, Finn's shy grin, Sarah's art. The world's noise, lawsuits, headlines. Threats faded, leaving only this lake, this tree, this breath. I wasn't running, wasn't fighting, just being, a father whole under a sky vast as love. The silence wasn't empty, it was full. A pause where pain became purpose, where I held my family close, their laughter the only sound I needed, echoing through a heart no longer bound by shadows. I stood, camera rolling by the lake, and looked straight at you, beyond the lens, into your world. If you're lost in the dark, I said, voice steady, I'm here, waiting for you. You ever speak to someone you'll never meet, yet feel their heart? I shared our story, Maine's cabin, Victoria's lies, Sarah's strength, Chloe, Leo, Finn's resilience. Not to boast, but to light your path. The maple tree behind me swayed, its roots our anchor, tying us to thousands our fund helped. I saw your struggles, your hidden scars, your fights against your own Victorias. The lake's breeze, soft as Maine's spring, carried my words 50 miles from New York's roar. You're not alone, I said, thinking of Sarah's hand in mine, Finn's yellow toy car, Chloe's art. I'd been blind, broken, but found my way. You could too. The sky above, wide as hope, held us both, no matter your pain, betrayal, loss, fear. I paused, the lake's ripples a bridge between us, inviting you to trust, to rise. Central Park's chaos, where I found them, was a memory. This was now, a call to you, wherever you stand. My eyes, steady, met yours through the screen, promising I'd listen, that your story mattered. The wind whispered of growth, of roots we'd share, under a sky where no one had to face the dark alone. I leaned closer, the lake glinting, the maple shadow cool. Tell me your story, I urged. Voice warm, it might be the light someone needs. You ever asked the world to be brave? I saw you mothers like Sarah, kids like Chloe, fathers like me, carrying wounds, yet strong. Our journey, Maine's pain, New York's fight, this lake's peace sparked millions. Yours could too. The yellow toy car, Finn's spark, was ours, but yours waited, in a photo, a scar, a dream. Post it. Write it, speak it, under the sky or yours, 200 feet from your own shore. Our fun grew from stories shared, 10,000 lives touched, each a ripple like this lake's. Sarah's paintings, Chloe's sketches. Leo's questions, they were ours, but also yours, proof of healing. I saw your hashtags, your letters, your courage, joining hashtag family reunited. The breeze carried Maine's pines, tying your fight to mine. To strangers waiting for your voice. New York's chaos faded. This tree, this lake, was our stage where your voice could soar. Your story, I said, could save someone tomorrow. I smiled, believing in you, as Sarah believed in me. The maple's leaves danced, a call to act, to share, to heal. Under this sky, vast as love, I waited, ready for your words, knowing they'd bloom. Like wildflowers through stone, lighting a world where no story stayed silent. By our lakeside maple, 50 miles from New York's pulse, I faced the camera, heart full. The lakes shimmer a mirror of your support. Thank you, I said, hand on chest, for walking with me from Maine's shadows to this light. You ever feel a world's embrace? You watch my story, Victoria's lies, Sarah's exile, Chloe, Leo, Finn's resilience, millions of you, sharing tears, cheers, stories of your own. The yellow toy car, Finn's now, gleamed on our mantle. A spark you fanned into flame. Your comments, 100,000 strong, your hashtags, your letters, built our fund, helping 10,000 families. I saw your faces, mothers like Sarah, kids like Chloe. In every view, every share. The lake's breeze, soft as Maine's pines, carried your courage, tying us to Central Park's Reunion, to boardrooms where truth won. New York's skyline, once my cage, faded. This tree, this home, held your belief. Sarah's paintings, Chloe's art, Leo's laughter, they bloomed because you listened. Rachel's words, David's fight, our maple's roots, they grew with you. I stood, 200 feet from the shore, feeling your strength, not as a billionaire, but as Alex, a father you lifted. The wind sang of spring, of lives you touched through us. Your stories, shared online. Lit paths for others, proving pain could birth hope. I bow to you, not for applause, but for the heart you gave us, under a sky where your faith wove a tapestry, stronger than any empire. Binding us in love that outlasted every storm. I looked to the horizon, the lake's edge 50 miles from New York's ghosts, and promised a future unafraid. I don't know what lies ahead, I said. Voice steady, but I'm not scared anymore. You ever vow to live for what matters? With Sarah, Chloe, Leo, Finn, I'd build a life, not of wealth, but of love, under this maple's shade. Our fund would grow, reaching 100,000 families, your story's its fuel. I saw our home, 200 feet of shore, alive with their laughter, Sarah's art, my consulting work a quiet pulse. Maine's cabin. Where pain began, was a root, not a chain, tying me to you, to hope. The yellow toy car, on our mantle, promised more fights, more healing, more light. I'd face tomorrow, not as a titan, but as Alex, shaped by loss, by love, by you. The lake's ripples carried Maine's spring, whispering of new chapters. Chloe's trust, Finn's grin, Leo's questions, they were my compass, guiding us beyond Victoria's shadow, beyond New York's roar. Your courage, shared in comments, rallies, letters, showed me no path was too dark. I smiled, the wind lifting me. Knowing our story wasn't done, but growing, like our maple, its branches wide. Under this sky, vast as faith, I pledged to keep going for them, for you, for a world where love wrote the ending. Blooming where fear once stood, I turned to you, the lake glinting, the maple's leaves dancing, and urged, don't keep your story silent. You ever call a world to rise? If you've climbed from the deepest dark, I said, share it, it's a light for someone lost. Your pain, like mine, Maine's betrayal, Central Park's fear, our fund's hope could save another. The yellow toy car, Finn's spark, was ours, but yours waited, in a photo, a scar, a dream. Post it, write it, speak it, under your sky, 200 feet from your shore. Our fund's reach, 10,000 lives. Grew from stories shared, yours could touch millions. Sarah's art, Chloe's sketches, Leo's stars, they were proof. Pain becomes power when spoken. The lake's breeze, Maine's breath, carried my call, tying us to you, to strangers waiting for your voice. Hashtag it, comment, gather by your own maple, let it spread. I saw you, 50 miles from my lake, holding your truth, ready to shine. The wind sang of spring, of roots we'd grow together. Your story, I said, is the hope someone needs. I smiled, believing in you, as you believed in me. Under this sky, wide as love. I left the ending open, waiting for your words, knowing they'd bloom, like wildflowers through stone, lighting a world where no one faced the dark alone.